everybody, Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I am bringing you a deck centered around Raikou from Breakthrough and Electrode from Evolutions. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and maybe subscribe. It really does help us out a lot and lets us do more for you guys. And as for the question of the day, my QOTD today really just kind of centers around one of the cards, and that is Electrode. Now you might be thinking, well, what could I possibly think with what question could I be asking about Electrode? And looking at the card, it's really cool going back to like the reprint of the original base set. And one cool thing about that was that they printed the levels on the card. Like, as you can see, Electrode is level 40, Voltorb is level 10 if you look at other cards, other Pokemon cards from Evolutions in the base set. And even, I don't remember exactly when they stopped, but continuing on, they continued to do this as well. And my question of the day is part an actual question, and partly is just kind of a theory-mon type of thing. The actual question part of my question of the day is, did the level really ever have any significance? I know in the video game there were things like, well, obviously levels mattered in terms of power, then Nest Ball caught Pokemon that were lower leveling you a lot easier, and also Fissure, the Oko moves really were more effective and, well, not more effective, more accurate based on the level difference. My question is, was the level ever actually relevant in the TCG? And if so or if not, if so, how was it relevant? And if it was not, then my theory modding part of the question of the day is, how would you guys like to see level implemented into the TCG? I mean, if so, if you don't, just say I do not want level to be a part of the TCG. I think there are too many things as is, but if level were to be implemented, I think something cool would be like moves that were only effective on Pokemon of lower level. I mean, granted, this would have to be completely after every single Pokemon would have a level on it, and I know that Sun and Moon are just nixing those completely, but if level were to be implemented into the TCG, I think level dependent moves, I think level dependent search options would be really cool. Like I know Nest Ball is getting printed in the next set in Sun and Moon, so I mean that goes completely out the window, gets rid of that ball. But really, I think level could be a kind of cool implementation, although it would be very complicated, and cards would have to be strategically leveled as opposed to just be like, oh, let's just slap a level like 55 on this guy. So in my opinion, I don't think level should be implemented at all. If it hasn't before, then it really shouldn't anymore. But if it were, I think there could be some cool mechanics, but that would just make the TCG much more complicated than it already is. What are your guys' thoughts on the level on the cards? Let me know in the comments section below. But anyway, on to the actual deck. Like I said, this is centered around Raikou and Electrode. Raikou, I've done a couple decks on this, and I plan to do one in the next week or so with another partner. But Raikou is just really cool. 120 HP, so not bad for a basic, and especially not bad for a basic non-EX with the ability Shining Body. If this Pokemon has any lightning energy attached to it, any damage done to this Pokemon by attacks is reduced by 20. Free Hard Charm if you just have any lightning energy attached to it. And then Thunder Lance, 50 plus 20 for each lightning energy attached to this Pokemon, so you can build this up to absurd levels to knock things out. And the obvious pairing with Electrode is the Bazap Thunder. Once during your turn, you may knock out this Pokemon and attach it to one of your lightning Pokemon as a special energy card. Then this card provides 2 lightning energy only while this card is attached to a Pokemon. So the obvious synergy, play a lightning onto the Raikou, knock out an Electrode, and you immediately have a fully powered up Thunder Lance. And if you want, you can just continually Bazap Thunder to power up Raikou as well. So Raikou is the main attacker, but we are also using one copy of Jolteon-EX for the Flash Ray attack. It's not nearly as good as it was before because Night March is no longer a thing in Standard, thank the Lord, but it definitely has tech ability to rely on basics like Volcanion, for instance, Yveltal, although this deck already has a good enough matchup against Yveltal, so you really don't need Jolteon. But it still can help in decks that rely on basics, but it's not good enough to make to take up multiple cards in this deck, so that's why we are only running one of these as opposed to 2. We are running 4 of the Raikou and then 4 Voltorb and Electrode, just very, very streamlined, max number of these guys possible just to get powered up as quickly and as powerfully as possible. And then we are running a couple Shaymin for the setup, just play that thing down, get a couple cards, and go from there, just keep setting up as fast as possible. Like I said, that is the entire focus of this deck, is set up quickly, then disrupt your opponent's hand with an Ace Trainer, and then just try to begin to just destroy all the Pokemon they have. We are also running 2 Level Ball, as well, with the items we are running 2 Level Ball to search out Voltorbs and Electrodes. They can't search out anything else, but Voltorb and Electrode are so valuable in this deck that I needed to run a couple Level Ball for that. 4 Max Elixir to assist in the powering up of Raikou as quickly as possible. I mean, 4 Max Elixir plus 10 Lightning Energy gets you energy very, very consistently, and you can hit... Actually, I had a Raikou powered up with 7 energy turn 1 because I hit a couple Max Elixirs. I knocked out a couple Electrodes and then had manual attachments. Well, not turn 1, turn 2, but as soon as possible, I had a Raikou powered up with 7 energy to be able to attack with, and that was absurd, but that was all thanks to Max Elixir and Electrode. So these two, again, a very, very, very powerful combination. Running 1 Super Rod to get stuff back into the deck, like if I have to discard Electrode with Ultra Ball or Sycamore, you're able to get those things back in the deck. 1 Switch, just in case we start with a Shaymin or something like that. This deck really doesn't worry too much about having a bad starter, because if you start with a Voltorb, well, you just evolve into Electrode and knock it out. If you start with a Raikou, that's what you want to start with. If you start with a Jolteon, that thing has free retreat anyway, so you're not too worried about your starters. The only true bad starter in this deck is Shaymin, and believe me, I start with that thing way more often than I should. But still, this deck doesn't really have too bad of options to start with, and Shaymin is even only a 1 retreat cost. So really don't have to worry about switching cards all that much, but still, switch if you're like paralyzed or stuck active or something like that is always nice to have. 4 Trainers Mail to help with consistency. 4 Ultra Ball to guaranteed get what we want when we want it. And yeah, Ultra Ball is just the preferred method of searching for Pokemon. 4 VS Seeker to reuse all of our supporters. And as for the supporter line, you have it's kind of a typical line for me, because you have the 2 Lysandre here, you have the 2 N, the Pokemon Ranger right there, just because I'm paranoid of running up against Jolteon deck, against a Jolteon deck that would be able to completely shut me out otherwise, even though Lysandre can work around that just as well. But still, I'm super paranoid, so that's why I'm running a Pokemon Ranger. 3 Sycamore to just get the straight up consistency of discarding and drawing. And I'm not running 4 Sycamore because I'm also running 2 Ace Trainer, and this card is excellent in this deck because each player you can only play this if you have more prizes left than your opponent, and each player shuffles his hand into his or her deck. Then you draw 6 cards and your opponent draws 3, so immediately it puts your opponent down to a low hand size while giving you a shuffle and draw option. And the synergy with this deck is knocking out an Electrode, giving your opponent a prize, and then immediately Ace Trainering, so your opponent not only doesn't get to use that prize, but they are put down to a lower hand size. You have a more powered up Raikou, and you have a fresh hand of 6. So this card is very, very, very strong in this deck. For the stadiums, of course, we're running Rough Seas. This card is ridiculously powerful in combination with Raikou because Hard Charm the essential Shining Body Hard Charm makes it harder for Raikou to get knocked out. And then if you put a Fighting Fury Belt on that thing too, it has even more HP, and then Rough Seas just gives it even more longevity. So really, Raikou sticks around way too darn long for a Pokemon that is just a basic non-EX. I mean, all of this combination is just kind of ridiculous. Rough Seas is such a powerful stadium. I wish more types got a stadium as powerful as Rough Seas. I know that Grass has Forest of Giant Plants, which is busted in itself, but I'm also running 4 of the Lightning Energy. That's what you want to run in this deck. And I'm running such a heavy amount because I want to make sure that I'm able to hit Max Elixirs more often than not to power up the Raikous. And while I know that we have the Electrodes going right there, you still want Lightning Energy. You still want to be able to play those down onto Raikou and hit those with Max Elixir, just so you can hit for the number of damage that you want and take those knockouts on EXs. So yeah, running a pretty heavy line of Lightning Energy. But yeah, I just said but yeah like 6 times, so I apologize for that. Let's go ahead and see this deck in action. I am completely done rambling at this point. Well, for now, anyway. Alrighty, we have found one against 6-string guitar, one with a dark and psychic deck. So this is really awesome because it looks like we are up against an Yveltal Garbodor deck, which is a phenomenal matchup for us. I mean, this is, considering that Yveltal Garbodor is one of the best decks in the format, really is why this deck does so well. Because I mean, I've been running into almost nothing but that lately. So running this deck gets you some free and cheap wins depending on the scenario. So we start off with actually a pretty solid hand. I'm going to lead off with my Voltorb because I have the Max Elixir in my hand and I want to be able to play that onto Raikou to set it up. Plus, with Voltorb, you really don't need to get it out of the active spot because you can always just, you know, like you can always just evolve it into Electrode, and that's how you get it out of the active spot. So I do start with a very, very good hand because I can, well, I mean, it was a good hand until I whiffed on the Max Elixir, but what I can do, play an energy onto the Raikou, get that pretty much set up for next turn as long as I can get an Electrode, and then I get another Voltorb, and let's go ahead and play the Max Elixir, get another energy onto my Raikou, and then I hate to discard so many energy, but I mean, you know what, I have Electrode, I'll be pretty fine regardless, and then I'm going to play another Raikou down, go ahead and go for the Max Elixir. I finally hit one, so yeah, I'm just going to power up this guy, just guaranteed have one next turn, and then go ahead and Trainers Mail for a Level Ball. So I immediately have a Fighting Fury belted Raikou powered up turn 1 with this deck by just hitting a couple Max Elixirs, and I don't even need to power it up that much in this matchup because my opponent really, I'll be able to one-shot even a Fighting Fury belted Yveltal EX with a simple 3 energy Raikou. I don't even need the Fighting Fury belt on my end, so all I need to do is consistently power up my Raikous. I do have to watch out for that Enhanced Hammer because that will be able to discard Electrode. That's why I decided to just power up this Raikou with strictly Lightning Energy. And yeah, I want to get things powered up before my opponent gets Garbodors up because that will be very, very bad for me. What I do have in my hand is an excellent combination because what I can do next turn, Level Ball for an Electrode, play my Lightning Energy onto my other Raikou, knock out the Electrode, play it onto this Raikou that's on the bench without any energy. That way I have 2 Raikou set up, and then I can Ace Trainer my opponent down to 3 cards, and I get 6. So I'm just in a phenomenal, phenomenal spot right now. My opponent does have a hand of 6, and okay, apparently it doesn't matter because my opponent goes ahead and forfeits. I guess he saw that, first of all, he had a very bad matchup. Second of all, my board was just set up too completely to where I think he would have needed a pretty powered up Yveltal EX in order to knock me out. Actually, probably a Garbodor plus Yveltal EX to get rid of my ability on Raikou that lets me take hits even better. So, yep, that was a great first game, although it wasn't as long as I would have wanted, so we're just going to try to find another one right now. Alrighty, we have found another one against just some guy in LA. That's funny. Kind of cool that he was able to get all of that into the name, but it might just be that he maxed out the characters with a pure Psychic deck. We do win the coin flip, so I would definitely like to go first. Start off with pretty solid hand, actually. This deck really does have a lot of outs. There are no... Actually, I don't want to say there are no bad starting Pokemon. But Shaymin is the only bad starting Pokemon, and there are plenty, like all the Raikous and Voltorbs, it's okay to start with. And this is a Honedge deck? That's kind of cool. So what I am going to do, play the Rough Seas, get, ooh, so that's nice, get a Max Elixir. What I am going to do, go ahead and Ultra Ball, get rid of the N and the Electrode. I don't need all 4 Electrode. I mean, it's nice, but I don't need all 4 of them. Going to play down the Raikou Max Elixir onto it, most likely. Well, that is if I hit it. And then play the regular energy onto my active Raikou, because I will just be able to Bazap Thunder onto that next turn, assuming I can get a Voltorb, which I do. And I get a very, very nice combination of cards. So the question is, yeah, I think I just want to grab an Electrode for next turn, because if I have another out, well, there we go. Okay, I can always just grab... Yeah, I can always just grab another Voltorb with this Level Ball. I wanted to make sure that I have a way to Ace Trainer next turn, and put my opponent down and at least draw cards, because if you don't have fewer prizes than your opponent, you can't use Ace Trainer. So I decided to level ball, grab the Electrode first, and then Trainer's Mail to see what I could get. Just so, I mean, I had outs to drawing next turn, and I didn't play the last Raikou just in case I need to get a Shaymin or something like that. Hindsight 2020, I probably could have just gone ahead and played it, but I really saw no reason to, because, I mean, I already have one Raikou down, and I have one Raikou on the bench, so I don't know. We'll see. My opponent does play a Floatstone and a Psychic Energy onto the Honedge, yeah, it's Honedge, not Doublade. Doublade, it's Honedge, Doublade, Aegislash. So I'm interested to see what my opponent's deck is, because I know that I ran like a Trevenant Break Aegislash deck a while back, but unfortunately the Trevenant that you would run it with is kind of gone now. And so I'm curious to see what exactly my opponent is running, because Rough Seas kind of cancels out the minimal damage spread that goes on, and my opponent isn't playing anything, so I'm wondering if there's like a series of plays they're thinking of, and oh, they just go for stab. So yeah, this is going to be a very short second game because we will just win. That's unfortunate. What I'm going to play it out a little bit just because, I mean, I want to show you guys how consistent this deck is, and obviously I'm going to have a Raikou powered up, turn 2, be able to attack, and then, I mean, I just want to Ace Trainer. I really do just want to Ace Trainer, just because, like, I can finally use it. I get another Electrode that I can get another Raikou powered up, because, I mean, I have my manual attachment for this turn anyway. I'll get another... You know what? Screw it. Let's just load up this Raikou as much as possible. But you see, by turn 2, if my opponent had gotten something else going, I would have been able to just have 2 Raikous powered up immediately with Fighting Fury Belts and everything. So let's play that there, get another Raikou down, and then just end the turn with, or end the game rather, with a Thunder Lance for 180 damage. Turn 2. This deck is ridiculously powerful and can get going really fast in some cases, but again, another very, very short game, so sorry about that. I'm going to get one more, and let's hope that it is a much better one than these first 2 were. Alrighty, we have found another one against IECD with a Psychic and normal deck. So, I mean, based on the coin, looks like a Mega Mewtwo Garbodor deck. So this could be a very, very interesting matchup. Do win the coin flip, so we will get to go first. That is great for us. And yeah, so let's see what we can get. Get some solid stuff. I mean, I guess I would prefer like a couple Voltorb or something like that, so I can get going before my opponent's able to get a Garbodor up. But you know what? This is acceptable. So what I'm gonna do? My opponent even starts with a Mewtwo, so I am just going to. Okay, please don't do this, TCGO. Please, please, please do not do this to me right now. Okay, good. So play the Lightning onto my Raikou, and then Sycamore for a new hand, and okay, I get some good stuff. Let's see if I can get like a Level Ball or something off of the Trainer's Mail. I get a Max Elixir. That's pretty good. And then, so I get another Ultra Ball. What I think I'm going to do, go ahead and Ultra Ball, get rid of the Lysandre and the Lightning to grab a Shaymin. And then I'm going to Max Elixir, try to get an energy on my Raikou on the bench. I whiff. What is it with me and whiffing Max Elixirs in this live? Jeez. Then I'm going to Shaymin for some more cards, see what I can get, and well, what I'm going to do is go ahead and Ultra Ball for a Voltorb, because I haven't drawn any of my Level Balls or anything. So we're actually starting off pretty slow, whiffing on that Max Elixir and not drawing into any Voltorbs or anything like that has made me waste some resources. So that's a bit unfortunate. However, I will be able to Electrode into Ace Trainer next turn, which is really the ideal turn 2 for this deck. So I'm not too worried right now. I think I'm actually in a very good spot. My opponent does get another Mewtwo down. Not that big of a deal at all. Let's see. I mean, they haven't... I think they're... Okay, so they end. That gives me a fresh hand to 6 cards. I'm okay with this. I should have an out to an Electrode and something else next turn. I prefer an Electrode and Ace Trainer, but... Well, okay, so I get... So I get an out, I get an Ultra Ball to get a Shaymin. My opponent does Parallel City. Luckily, I drew into the Rough Seas, so I can still play something down. And then I even draw into my Shaymin. So that is very nice right there. What I can do, go ahead and play the Rough Seas. Go ahead and Level Ball for Yeah, I want to go ahead and get the Electrode. Probably Super Rod first. Get back in the Electrode and 2 Lightnings. Then play the Lightning onto my Raikou on the bench. Play the Electrode down. Probably, yeah, let's go ahead and play the Raikou down. Play the Shaymin. Just want to play as much as I can. Try to get something good with my Shaymin, which I do. So what I can do is go ahead and Zap Thunder onto my active Raikou, which is great. That allows me to play my Voltorb down onto the bench while having a Raikou powered up. And then I can immediately Ace Trainer, which is really exactly what I want. So I'll get my opponent down to 3 cards immediately, and I mean, I hope he just draws into like a bunch of energy or something like that and no real outs to be able to attack me. Well, to not necessarily attack, but, well, yeah, attack, but also damage. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Max Elixir onto that Raikou, Trainer's Mail, get another Max Elixir, so that is pretty nice. I'll still be able to attack this turn and whiff again. So that's unfortunate, but we can Thunder Lance right here, do 120 damage, set that Mewtwo to be knocked out next turn by another Thunder Lance, and yeah, just in a very good position. Hopefully my opponent gets a Trubbish down, so that's gonna be unfortunate. Gets a DCE onto his, oh my gosh, of course he draws into a Hoopa. So that's unfortunate that my opponent hadn't gone through too much in his deck, so it's kind of understandable that he would have some outs, but it's still just like, okay, at least draw into an Ultra Ball or something. Don't draw directly into a Hoopa. That's just kind of like, oh, come on now. But either way, my opponent will be able to get a fresh hand and a couple Pokemon down because he drew into a Hoopa off an Ace Trainer to 3. So that's just unfortunate right there. I mean, it's really luck of the draw. And while Ace Trainer is very good, if your opponent draws outs to it every time, it's not nearly as good. So that's just kind of how it goes right then. I will be able to end my opponent down to 4 next turn once I Zap Thunder again to knock out my opponent's Mewtwo. So I will be pretty set up, but I will have to worry about my opponent's Mega Mewtwo, well, potential Mega Mewtwo that he's going to be powering up on the bench, because that will be able to one-shot my Raikou, well, every single Raikou that I send out. So I will just have to kind of rely on the prize trade at this point and go from there. My opponent does get a Shrine of Memories. That's fine at this point. It really doesn't matter to me unless my opponent can start just switching the damage. But even then, I'm not doing enough damage to knock out my own Raikou. Like, if he were to damage change onto my Raikou, it wouldn't be able to knock me out. But what I can do is go ahead and Level Ball for an Electrode to be able to Zap Thunder again. My opponent has not drawn... My opponent really has not drawn anything particularly good. So what I am going to do, play the energy onto the Raikou, go ahead and Zap Thunder. Do I want to do that now or do I want to wait? No, I want to do that now. Power up this Raikou on the bench so that I can just potentially, with the right number of cards, knock out a Mewtwo and then put my opponent down to 4 cards. Hopefully it's not something, hopefully nothing particularly good. I mean, I do get another Voltorb, so I am going to play that down, try to get another Electrode, because if I can get another Electrode and a regular Lightning Energy, I will be able to, I think, one-shot a Mega Mewtwo, because that'll be 7 energy on my Raikou on the bench, which will be enough to one-shot a Mega Mewtwo. So as long as my opponent didn't draw any, like, ridiculous outs, draws a Float Stone, please don't have drawn the Garbodor. Please don't have drawn it. It'll make me very sad if you did draw it. Oh, I got an Ultra Ball, so he will be able to knock out my Raikou. Hopefully it doesn't have a Shaymin. And, okay, just does immediately get the Garbodor. And, oh boy. So this is going to be rough, now that I can't. And they draw a Sycamore. So apparently I'm unable to play my opponent down into, like, I'm unable to N or Ace Trainer my opponent into a bad hand. So that, I mean, that stinks. But, whatever. There's nothing I can do about that. It's just kind of like, well, getting lucky off the draws. So I will get knocked out by a Psychic Infinity. My opponent will go down to 3 prizes, and I'm going to have to send up another Raikou. This Raikou will be able to 2-shot him, and he won't be able to... And he will not be able to Shrine of Memories, really. Well, I mean, he can... like... he can technically damage change, but it won't do a lot. What I could also do is Lysandre in the Shaymin, take a knockout on that, but at this point I think it's in my best interest to just attack the Mewtwo. And then I'm going to go ahead and Ace Trainer again, get 6 cards, put my opponent down to 3, and hope he doesn't draw into anything that can help him. Unfortunately, I don't draw into like my Lysandre or anything like that, so that is very unfortunate. I am going to go ahead and play the Rough Seas, go ahead and Thunderlance, put the Mewtwo in position to be knocked out, and luckily because there's no item hate, or there's no tool hate in this current meta, I don't have to worry about my tool being discarded. Well, I guess if my opponent plays a random Rattata, which, I mean, I have seen, don't get me wrong, I have seen people play Rattatas and draws into a DCE, gets a Trainer's Mail. Please don't get anything, please. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is utterly ridiculous. So I've Ace Trainer twice, end my opponent, Ace Trainer twice and end my opponent to a bad hand, and every single time they've drawn into good stuff. So I mean, that's just really unfortunate. Like, there's nothing at all I can do about that. They even Sycamore into an... Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Oh boy. Well, okay, my opponent does Parallel City, gets rid of the Shaymin, so that's a good play by him. So that means I have to knock out the Hoopa or another Mewtwo in order to take my prizes and have a chance at winning the game. Luckily... Okay, I need an N or something. I really do, because now I'm down to 2 prizes. I have a Raikou that I will be able to get powered up. My Raikou will be powered up right now, and I get an N, so I will be able to end my opponent to 2. What I am going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and play that Electrode down so that I don't draw into it. Do I want to play the Voltorb down? Yeah, because I've already gone through 2 Raikous. I'm not going to be able to get them back necessarily, and then I am just going to go ahead and N into 3... Well, N into 4, end my opponent down to 2, and hopefully my opponent didn't draw into anything. I really am. Like, I want my Lysandre right now. I want a Lysandre because I'll be able to bring in my opponent's Mewtwo on the bench and then start damaging that. So my opponent does just promote the Hoopa. I mean, that doesn't mean anything because my opponent has a Float Stone. This is a really, really, really close. So my opponent just plays an energy onto his Mewtwo and ends. Okay, please give me my Lysandre or an Ace Trainer. Please, one of those 2. Well, okay, I get a Trainer's Mail. That's fine. I can VS Seeker into that. But unfortunately, like, it's actually coming back that my missed Max Elixirs are going to hurt me in the end because I won't be able to power up a Raikou in 2 turns if my opponent doesn't get anything. So my opponent, it does just switch into the Garbodor. That's a good play. That is a very good play. Okay, please VS Seeker. Of course I don't get a VS Seeker. So, fortunately, don't draw into it. What I am just going to do is Thunderlance, knock out the Garbodor, draw a prize, and hope that my opponent doesn't have anything. There's a VS Seeker. So, that's very, very unfortunate that I couldn't draw into anything, even with the Trainer's Mail. And yeah, the missed Max Elixirs are coming back to bite me now because I can't power up a Raikou to attack next turn. And if my opponent, of course he has a Shaymin. Of course my opponent had a Shaymin. Oh my gosh, that is ridiculous. So every single time my opponent's end, he's drawn into something. I have End or Ace Trainer, my opponent's drawn into something perfect. I mean, that's unfortunate. I mean, that's how the game goes. And my opponent made the right play in letting me knock out his Garbodor, but he will be able to knock out my Raikou right here, and there's nothing I can do, because I won't be able to power up a Raikou, and going to be able to take a prize regardless. So my only real play after this Raikou gets knocked out is to try to bring in that Shaymin and hope that my opponent doesn't draw an energy or something like that, because if I leave the Mewtwo active, there's absolutely nothing I can do. So I'm pretty sure this game is a lost cause, and especially because... I mean, I can't power it up with Electrode because I'll give up a prize. I don't even draw into an energy. So, I mean, this really... I mean, I think I lost. I'm pretty positive that I have lost. But what I can do is just Lysandre in the Shaymin and then pray that my opponent doesn't draw energy for, like, the next 6 turns or something like that. To where I can eventually knock it out. If I could... If I had just 1 prize difference, then I would have been able to knock out the Shaymin and win the game. But unfortunately, I didn't, and there we go. My opponent does have the DCE. So, yeah, we do lose that game. That's a bit unfortunate. But sometimes, I mean, you just are able to draw out of stuff, and my opponent played that absolutely correctly. I mean, they did everything they needed to win. It's just unfortunate the way that my opponent did draw ended badly for us, and I couldn't draw what I needed when I needed. But you know what? That's the way the game goes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and this is Styx, signing out. Why not? See you guys.